Hey guys, so this is the first part of a series that I'm planning to do on the book of Nehemiah. It actually started from my own devotionals that I was doing on um, the app, the Bible app, and I was doing a devotional series, and it was on the book of Nehemiah. And as I was reading it during my morning time, I started realizing that this is like some really good stuff, and I think I could actually get a journal page out of this. And I started having some images in my head and ideas of themes that was coming from this, and so I started journaling on it. And I decided that this would be a good one for us to do together because one, Nehemiah is a book that's not as popular as some other books in the Bible and doesn't get as much attention. And two, I think it actually has a lot of good wisdom that we can gain from it and apply to our own lives. So I'm going to actually start by just reading a little bit of one of the devotionals that stuck with me. So it said, sometimes bad news catches us totally off guard and reduces us to tears. We hurt so badly that we need time to nurse the hurt. We need time away from distractions. We shun even physical sustenance. News about the destruction of Nehemiah's beloved homeland evoked such a response in him. His feelings of patriotism, of concern for the Jews in Jerusalem, made him heartsick. As a royal cupbearer, Nehemiah was living a comfortable life in the palace of the king of Persia, far away from the strife and violence that ripped Jerusalem. Yet he chose not to ignore the situation. He did not turn a deaf ear nor shrug his shoulders at the news. In his distress, he wept bitterly and went to God in prayer for solace. Now, the story of Nehemiah, just to give you some background knowledge, is about a man who was living in outside of Israel, and Israel had been previously overrun and taken by other people. I can't give you the exact name, but they had been taken over, and during that process, a lot of destruction had hit Israel. And so this is during a time where some of the it's after that the city had been taken, and Jews were now being allowed to go back to Israel. It was no longer being held captive, and Nehemiah hadn't made the trip back to Israel yet. And so he meets some of his friends or some people that had gone to Jerusalem and had come back, and he asks them, what's the condition of Israel? What's the condition of Jerusalem? How's the city? Tell me about it. And he's surprised to hear these people tell him that the city is still in ruins, and the wall specifically of Jerusalem is destroyed. There's holes everywhere. There's no strong wall protecting the city. And this is really bad news for Nehemiah because it shows the vulnerability of Israel at this point, and it really breaks his heart. And so the first idea that we kind of see here with Nehemiah is the idea of brokenness. And it's said here, if I actually read the verse in Nehemiah chapter 1, verse 3, this is his friends talking back to him, explaining what Jerusalem is like. And it says, so they said to me, things are not going well for those who returned to the province of Judah. They are in great trouble and in great disgrace. The wall of Jerusalem has been torn down and the gates have been destroyed by fire. When I heard this, I, meaning Nehemiah, sat down and wept. In fact, for days I mourned, fasted, and prayed to the God of heaven. So what we see right now is Nehemiah receiving this news, and it really just breaks his heart. And this is the first idea that I wanted to talk about, was the brokenness of Nehemiah. And he very clearly says he wept and he mourned and he was broken over news of other people. And this really stuck out to me because I think you might have seen in other of the things that I've wrote, have said that, sometimes I have a hard time feeling strong when I'm vulnerable emotionally, and when I weep for something or I cry, I feel like it's a sign of weakness, and I feel ashamed often when I feel broken over something. I feel like, why can't I be stronger? I feel like I'm sensitive, and I feel like I'm just weak. And God's really been working with me to show me the value of emotions and the value of being able to be vulnerable and letting other people see that. And here we see Nehemiah is very open about his brokenness. And the beautiful thing about this part of the story is that the brokenness that he felt and the tears that he shed was the beginning of a new beginning. It was the start of a new thing that God was going to do. And I think that many times we find ourselves in brokenness, in a broken relationship, or our careers become broken, and when we receive news that maybe we're terminated in our position, or we didn't get the raise that we wanted, and we're broken, or relationships with friends fall apart, or different things like that break us, and we feel that mourning and we feel that crying. And I had this image that I had saw on Pinterest that really spoke to me, and I thought connected with this idea of Nehemiah crying over Israel, was the idea of someone crying and the tears poured down onto the ground, and those tears were the very thing that watered the flowers there down there, and the flowers grew, and it was the grown out of the tears that were wept over this area. So kind of like this kind of happened with Nehemiah, like he wept and he was broken. And then if you continue to read in chapter 1, you see that he goes to the king of Persia and he tells the king, hey, I'm distraught, I'm broken, I'm distressed. Well, the king notices that he's distressed and says, tell me what's wrong. And Nehemiah shares with him, like, I'm upset that the Jerusalem is in this state. I'm upset that the wall is in the condition that it's in. And Nehemiah actually gets permission to go back to Jerusalem and has all this support from the king of Persia and to build and to finance this wall. And Nehemiah is really the guy that leads the rebuilding of the wall of Jerusalem, which is really significant for the people of Israel. It's kind of showing them rising from the ashes, so to speak. And so this idea that Nehemiah felt so much brokenness and shed all these tears for this cause was the beginning of the new wall and the beginning of the new construction of Israel. So I just kind of related that to my own life of just trying to remind myself in those moments of brokenness and those moments of tears that I feel like I need to shed, instead of being embarrassed of them and thinking that, this is weakness or this is horrible news. What can be done? I feel helpless. Using that brokenness to be the beginning of something, maybe using it to move you forward, to act or to change. And so I just want to go on to the second point is that, we can hold on to this idea of our brokenness being the beginning of a new beginning. But we can also look at Nehemiah and see how he was really broken on behalf of other people and someone else. And so you can use that idea to support yourself. But also this really caught my attention was that Nehemiah was broken for a city, his own city in a sense, but he wasn't even there. And so I wanted to read another part of this devotional that really stuck out to me and had me thinking about my own city. And it said, we don't have to search the media for bad news about our own city. It is there, upfront and personal, all around us. God expects us to be concerned. He wants our hearts to be broken as we consider those who are less fortunate and are experiencing pain and suffering. God wants us to act, but He desires that we come to Him first in prayer for guidance and direction. What is your typical reaction to bad news or news that involves harm or danger to your loved ones? Think about your city. Have you ever felt particularly moved by its conditions? What situations triggered this feeling and how did you respond? Did you pray? And so this part really spoke out to me considering the city that I live in. I live in Baltimore, and this is a great example of a broken city. Not too long ago, less than maybe just about a year, obviously we had the riots, which was all over the news, and that was my city. It was broken, and it was being destroyed from within, not from without. And from the very first time I came to Baltimore 4 years ago, the first thing I noticed was how physically it was broken. There was these abandoned buildings everywhere. There was just such poverty that I wasn't used to seeing. And even now I see it all the time. Like, it changes the landscape. You have a good neighborhood, and then you have, quote unquote, Baltimore. And I often, just kind of grow callous to it just to go on with my everyday life. because it's overwhelming and I don't know where to begin. Where can you solve this problem? And I was really challenged as I read this of what, why am I not being broken for my city? Why have I hardened my heart so much that I don't feel for my city so much anymore? And why am I not asking God to break my heart for what's breaking his? And so I really was challenged to see Nehemiah react to the condition of his city, Israel and Jerusalem. Started just, praying that I would be open to my own city and that God would show me the condition of my own city and that my heart would begin to move. And that if I had to be broken, because, I think sometimes the reason why we become callous to negative news or from bad news about wars and famine and everything is because there's so much of it. And every time we turn on the news, it's a different story, a different murder, a different heartbreaking story of war, famine, refugees, terrorist attacks, riots, and drug deals. Like, it's just so much. And if you allow, I feel like if I allow myself to feel something for all that, I'm just going to be walking in a state of misery all the time. But I think that's just a lie from the enemy to try to get us to not act, to make us turn off our feelings to these things so that we're not moved to act. So I've been praying a lot that God would open up my heart to my city and show me what needs to be done and show me where I can be. Now, I can't be the one to solve everything. I know that, but I can make a difference and I can actually do something and contribute to the changes that need to be made. So that's what I got out of just the first chapter. So I encourage you to read Nehemiah chapter 1 and 2 and really think about the idea of brokenness being the beginning of a new beginning, and maybe just seeing if you feel moved to create an image or a journal page on that, or color something, maybe flowers or something that signifies the beginning. So I'll share with you mine, and I'll post a picture. But this is actually the journal page that I did, and it's just shows a woman weeping, and her tears are falling upon the ground, and those are the very tears that are watering the flowers that grow. So to me, this is a good image and a representation of brokenness being the beginning of a new beginning. And again, I just did it right on my Bible, right across from the book of Nehemiah. So this is the first one. And I'll post a picture of it so you can see it. And I just really hope that you would be encouraged to read through Nehemiah chapters 1 and 2. And next Monday, I'll put up another video of the next page that I've done on Nehemiah. But like I said, I really hope that you can spend time in the Word of Nehemiah and gain something new and something relevant to your own life. So I look forward to seeing what you can create.